Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and today's edition for Friday, the 7th of April, comes to you from London. And the news overnight is the US bombings in Syria, and interesting to just see how markets have moved on that. We start by looking at currencies, then stock markets, commodities, and last of all, US tech stocks. So we see the dollar has barely changed, actually. It's still just holding on to this sideways move. We are still a little bit bearish in the medium term here below the cloud, but the long-term position is one of being above the cloud. So that's quite encouraging that we're not seeing any great move there. And the same for the euro as well. We are just still below the cloud, teetering along the bottom here. We do have this downside target and support, so we're just tussling with this move. If we move lower, we've got downside to 102. But we may be finding support here, and we're seeing that in the medium-term cloud. The next move for the dollar and the euro dollar basically is going to define where most currencies move next. And we see here Japanese yen, dollar just still falling away here. So big move overnight there on the news of the bombing, but that's recovered. So Asia has repriced that, and Europe's taking it in its stride. Looking at the South African rand, we are in this sideways move at the moment, but this is the depreciation against the dollar. And as we said yesterday, it looks like we've still got further to go on that. Sterling just trading a little bit lower this morning, this 124.50 level. We really, the last few days have been really stuck in this 124 area. 124.25 is the support level, so that's quite key to watch. Again, it'll all be about what happens with the dollar. Looking at Euro sterling, that's fairly flat, and this sterling Swiss franc is also quite flat. Against the Australian dollar is falling, so the sterling rate is changing quite dramatically there. And interestingly, we did have downside targets into the 150s. That's still hanging over us in the medium-term chart, in the short-term chart, but we are progressively getting to levels where we'll undo that. 167 is the area really that will get undone. So Australian dollar is quite key there. Looking at the US stock market, we see that the S&P 500 didn't do very much yesterday. It was fairly flat. We are just in this sideways range at the moment, pausing for breath. We're still bullish, medium, long term, and even short term. So markets are looking still pretty good. The Nasdaq fairly flat after the fall the previous day, but again bullish on all three time frames. Dow Jones also hanging on, and the Russell 2000 just hanging on as well. So looking at the futures, we are seeing the futures down about 1/4%. So that's pricing in a little bit of a fall at the opening at the moment, both on the S&P future and the Nasdaq E-mini. FTSE, we're seeing here just really below the cloud on the short term, just not holding on to its performance, and so just looking a little bit negative there. And the 250 looking really well, so it's the UK midcaps that are really powering at the moment. Looking at DAX, that's also looking pretty strong on all three time frames, and even the Nikkei did recover a little bit overnight, but it's still bearish in the short term. And this fall out of bed is a bit worrying for the Nikkei. So Japanese stocks just falling down. Looks like they're going to have a re-rating lower and to some support. Remembering that we are still bullish on the long and medium term charts, and we do have an activated target here to 47% upside. This longer term one not activated yet. So it'll be just quite interesting to see. The short term, we can see the targets there as well, watching how that plays out. Hang Seng down 0.6%, that's turned negative on the short-term chart. The Shanghai Composite, on the other hand, has broken out and is looking bullish, so it's doing the reverse of Japan. Looking at Sensex, that's bullish above all three charts in India, so we're seeing the Indian market looking good on long-term, medium-term, and short-term. The S&P 500 is also looking bullish, long, medium, and short-term. Brent crude really is the story. That's recovered very strongly and is up over 1.3% on that overnight news on the US bombing in Syria. So crude oil is a beneficiary of that, and it is rising quite a bit higher. We've got targets now to 58.86. If we can break that 57.50 level, then that crude run continues. So it'll be interesting to see whether this this sell-off is completely reversed. We're just heading into the resistance area. It will be interesting to see. But we were fighting resistance the previous day at 55. That's broken. We've touched 56 this morning. That's going to be the key. Can we keep taking out these round dollar levels? Looking at WTI, we do have the long-term target hanging over us. That would only be negated with a move above 55 on WTI. So we've got about $2.50 to go. So again, that will be quite key. Looking at US nat gas futures, we're seeing here the nat gas charts are bullish on the long term, just becoming bullish again medium term, and the short term chart is bullish, this 365 level. Nat gas is actually looking like it's staging a long term recovery. Copper falling quite heavily today, just still above the cloud though. And just looking at some of the other things, heating oil, obviously looking fairly similar to the crude chart. Cocoa we're seeing is just falling below, and cotton also just below. So a lot of softs still looking pretty bearish. The other big story, other than crude, of course, on any sort of war move is gold, and that jumped very significantly this morning, up 1%. And we're seeing here the bullishness really playing through on all the charts. Looking at the short-term chart, we've now got multiple targets, and multiple targets gives us a lot more conviction that we are going higher. We've got 1267, which we're nearly almost meeting. 1280 is a new target that's been given, and 1293. So a further 1 to 2% upside on gold. The interesting thing will be when we activate this upside target of 21% on the long-term chart. But again, the long-term, short-term, and medium-term, all these three time frames are all looking very bullish. Gold looking pretty strong, and of course that is also filtering through to the silver chart. That's looking pretty bullish too. US government bonds just falling away. They're at 2.32% yield, so we're seeing the yield there just falling. And medium term, we're through the cloud for the first time in a while, so we're just seeing government bonds just coming off really. Looking at tech, Apple fell away a little bit last night, but still bullish. An amazing looking chart, medium and long term. Google is still bullish on all three timeframes, just pulling back a bit. Amazon just undoing some of its recent move yesterday, but there's no big surprises there. And Facebook back below 142, did get above 143 at one stage, but still bullish on all three timeframes. Microsoft still bullish, and Nvidia hasn't really reversed this fall away, so it's quite an interesting one that I sold a couple of months ago. So that's it for today. Until Monday, have a great weekend. Happy charting. See you then.